Come see us doing live shows. We'll be in Los Angeles, Honolulu, Baltimore, Atlantic City, Cohoes, New York, Providence, Rhode Island. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for tickets, and only jimmydore.com. So now Benjamin Netanyahu is thrilled about Syria falling because that's been part of their project. The part of the Greater Israel Project is to expand into parts of Syria. And so here's what he had to say about Syria falling.
This is a historic day for the Middle East. The collapse of the Assad regime, the tyranny in Damascus offers great...
First of all, when he says it's an historic day, it means it's their first win in a very long time. That's what he means. I say enjoy it while it lasts, because there's a curse on you guys now. And everything's going to go incomprehensibly bad for Israel. That's my feeling. Maybe it's my hope. We'll see. I don't know. But so here, this is Bibi Netanyahu's creepily awkward Kevin Spacey fireside chat. And here we go.
This is a historic day for the Middle East. The collapse of the Assad regime, the tyranny in Damascus offers great opportunity, but also is fraught with significant dangers. This collapse is a direct result of our forceful action against Hezbollah and Iran, Assad's main supporters. It set off a chain reaction of all those who want to free themselves from this tyranny and its oppression. But it also means we have to take action against possible threats. One of them is the collapse of the Separation of Forces Agreement from 1974 between Israel and Syria.
So they had a Separation of Forces Agreement since 1974. I think that's the end of the Yom Kippur War. And now that's over because there's no more Syrian government. And so Netanyahu's like, well, so now we're going to have to expand into Syria to make sure. Well, here, listen to what he says. Watch this.
Agreement held for 50 years. Last night it collapsed. The Syrian army abandoned its positions. We gave the Israeli army the order to take over these positions to ensure that no hostile force embeds itself right next to the border of Israel.
So that they're just doing it so there's no crazy hostile force that takes over where the Syrian army left. They're coming, when you see the Israeli military storming in to rescue you, it's like you're waiting for a fire truck, but instead Shell gas truck pulls up, okay? Because that's what's happening. And so now they're getting to take over parts of Syria. And it's weird, just as Richard Medhurst pointed out, that people who are running Syria now, which is Al-Qaeda, aren't doing anything about it. They're not ever going to attack Israel. Isn't that interesting? I thought Israel, ISIS, and Al-Qaeda were mortal enemies, hated each other. Turns out no. Turns out Al-Qaeda is going to let Israel run right into Syria and take over parts of it. Here, he's got a little bit more to say.
Temporary defensive position until a suitable arrangement is found. Equally, we send a hand of peace.
I don't think they're ever going to find a suitable arrangement. The arrangement is Israel takes over part of Syria. And then he says, oh, look, the hand of peace. The hand of peace.
All those beyond our border in Syria, to the Jews, to the Kurds, to the Christians, and to the Muslims who want to live in peace with Israel. We're going to follow events very carefully. If we can establish neighborly relations and a peaceful relations with the new forces emerging in Syria, that's our desire. But if we do not, we'll do whatever it takes to defend the state of Israel and the border of Israel.
So let me just read you this and I'll come to you. Ali Abunima says, whether you feel elation, despair, or indifference at unfolding events, this remains true. All the states that provided billions in weapons and training to oust the Syrian government, while simultaneously providing billions in weapons, sending their warships and supplying oil to protect and enable Israel as it commits genocide in Gaza, did so solely for the sake of Israel. Whatever happens next, what is good for Israel and Zionism, and not the rights, self-determination, and interests of Syrian people, will remain these states' sole guiding principle. So what he's saying is that all the people like the United States, Germany, whoever is providing all the ammunitions to slaughter, for Israel to slaughter the Gazan people, the Palestinians, and all the people who did this Syria thing, that the only thing that matters is what is good for Israel and Zionism, not the right, self-determination and interests of the Syrian people. That's the sole guiding principle here. What would you like to say about what Netanyahu, his statement?
Yeah, I was just joking to myself that Netanyahu could go in and kiss Jorani on the cheeks and shake his hand and thank him, and people still would be in denial and pretend like there's no connection here to Israel. You can't talk about Syria without involving geopolitics. Syria is not like some remote planet or some remote island where there's a revolution and some kind of dictator and then that's it. No, there are huge consequences with foreign policy. You've got wolves, at the door. You've got Israel already occupying the Golan Heights, U.S. occupying a third of Syria with the oil and the crops, Turkey in the north occupying Idlib, and now they've sent in Al Qaeda to take the rest of the country. I mean, these people are dreaming, and we warned them about this. That this is what's going to happen. Israel is going to take more land. My parents, he's standing in the Golan Heights. My parents worked there in the UN in UNSO and UNDOF. So that's the peacekeeping mission, the observer mission in the Golan Heights. And, he says he wants a suitable arrangement. It's not up to him to decide what is suitable. That you've got UN Security Council Resolution 242, unanimously passed, which says Israel has to leave the Golan Heights, period. And when they illegally annexed it in the 1980s, I think it was UN Security Council Resolution 497 that was passed, and another one when they illegally annexed East Jerusalem. So, international law is very clear. The Americans voted with those resolutions, or they at least abstained. The point is they passed, and Israel as UN member has to obey them. They're legally binding. They have to leave the Golan Heights. And now instead of leaving, they're taking even more land. And you remember Jake Sullivan, when he was interviewed by Wolf Blitzer on CNN just after Biden was elected, he was saying something like, it was Blinken. He was saying something along the lines of, we'll leave the Golan Heights. We'll tell Israel to leave the Golan Heights when Assad is gone. Well, guess what? He's gone. So why don't you go ahead and tell Israel to leave? And why don't you lift the sanctions? They put sanctions on Syria, Caesar Act sanctions, because of Assad and his regime. Okay, well, Assad and the regime are gone. Why don't you lift the sanctions? Why are you still in the country? So, it was never about democracy. They don't care about people in Syria. It's all about expansionism and greater Israel. And, they're going to keep going. You got Smotrich, who's Netanyahu's finance minister, who was doing an interview in Hebrew about 4 weeks ago. And he said on camera that they want to extend Israel to Damascus. And right now, Israeli troops are 40 kilometers from Damascus. I mean, this is unheard of. They've taken control of Mount Hermon. That's the highest point in Syria. It's the most strategic place in the Golan Heights. Israel had a massive blind spot with their radar here, with their surveillance. It gave Syria a huge strategic advantage, military advantage. And these so-called rebels who claim to represent the interests of Syria have handed over the most precious military installation and site in the country without firing a bullet, without a fight, without any form of pushback. They just let them have it. And the Israelis have said they're going to take 400 square kilometers. That's larger than Gaza, by the way. That's an area larger than Gaza. And that's in addition to what they've already occupied since 1967. So they're not going to stop. And they've launched over 150 airstrikes since, in the last 48 hours. Israel have bombed Syria more than 150 times. Like I was saying before, every single piece of infrastructure that is beneficial to Syria as a country, for its military, for its defense, they've destroyed it. Radar installations, missile installations, you name it. Research laboratories, everything is gone. And these so-called rebels haven't done a goddamn thing because they're working for Israel. Why would they fight back? Why would they fight back? So, I don't understand the Syrians that have been fooled by this, that have had the wool pulled over their eyes, because you have a large number. I wouldn't say it's the majority, but a large portion who think that, it's time to celebrate. It's not time to celebrate. Turkey is moving in. Israel is moving in. America's not leaving. And they have control of the country now, and they just let it go to pieces. This is irreversible damage.
So the Syrians in Syria don't realize that their country is now being balkanized. It's now being split up and given to the United States, to Israel, and to Turkey, and that there is going to be no Syria. They don't realize this.
A lot of Syrians do. I'd like to think the majority of Syrians completely and perfectly understand this, but my point is there are too many who don't. There's a large minority who don't, and that's a shame.
Hey, it's time to upgrade your coffee. 1775 Vitality Coffee isn't just coffee, it's brain fuel. No kidding. With lion's mane, reishi, cordyceps, chaga, and turkey tail mushrooms. I've heard of turkey tail mushrooms. It's coffee that doesn't just wake you up, it keeps you sharp. Lion's mane and reishi supercharge your focus. Cordyceps delivers energy without the crash, and their hand-picked Bolivian beans deliver bold flavor that corporate coffee can't touch. No fillers, no nonsense, just coffee that works as hard as you do. Proudly backed by Rumble, this isn't coffee for the conformists. It's coffee for the bold, for the free, for the rebellious. Head to 1775coffee.com. Use the code Jimmy for 15% off. Make your mornings great, and coffee that stands for bold flavor, uncompromising quality, and the freedom Rumble fights for every day. Come see us doing live shows. We'll be in Los Angeles, Honolulu, Baltimore, Atlantic City, Cohoes, New York, Providence, Rhode Island. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for tickets, and only jimmydore.com.